Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Under the blazing sun of a small neighborhood market, the cries of vendors mingle with the aromas of ripe mangoes and fresh oranges. Amidst this bustle, Rosa, a woman in her 40s, tends her modest fruit stall. Every morning, she rises before dawn to buy her fruit at the central market, transports it in an old, creaking cart, and then sets up shop in her usual spot. Despite the fatigue and hardships, she always maintains a smile and greets everyone warmly. One day, while she was putting away her baskets of apples and bananas, she noticed a little boy, barefoot, his face covered in dust, gazing longingly at her fruit. His stomach rumbled in silence. He said nothing, but Rosa understood immediately. Without hesitation, she took a juicy mango and gently offered it to him. "Here, eat, my little one. You look hungry." The boy, hesitant at first, murmured a faint case before devouring the fruit with gratitude. Rosa even adds a bag with some bananas and apples. Before leaving, the boy looked up at her and said in a trembling voice, "One day, madam, I will come back to reimburse you. I promise." Rosa laughed softly. "Don't worry about it, my boy. When you give from the heart, you never lose anything." The years go by. Rosa continues to sell her fruit, enduring the difficult seasons, the debts, and life's occasional hardships. She never saw the little boy again, but his memory warms her heart every time she encounters a child in need. One morning, as she was setting up her stalls as usual, a luxury black car pulled up in front of the market. Passers-by turned, intrigued. An elegant young man in a suit got out of the car, followed by a driver. He walked slowly towards Rosa, a warm smile on his lips. "Madam Rosa? Do you remember me?" Rosa frowns, searching her memory for that face as an adult, and suddenly, her heart races. It was him. The hungry little boy from long ago. But what she doesn't yet know is that this young man didn't come just to say thank you. He is about to change his life forever. The morning sun bathed the market in a golden light. The familiar cries of the vendors, the sound of baskets being unloaded, the smells of ripe fruit, everything seemed as usual. Rosa, with her colorful scarf and old apron, carefully arranged her apples on the stall. Her back ached, but she kept smiling. She had lived through so many seasons, so many trials, that fatigue had become a part of her. However, on that day, something was going to break the routine. A black luxury car pulled up near the market, a model so elegant it seemed almost out of place amidst the dust and shouts. Passers-by stopped, intrigued. Children approached to admire the sunlight reflecting off its gleaming bodywork. A tall, well-dressed young man with a determined yet gentle gaze got out of the car. He glanced quickly around, then headed straight for Rosa's stall. She raised her head, initially suspicious. She never saw this type of customer here. "Hello, Mrs.," he said in a calm and respectful voice. "Hello, sir. What can I get you?" she replied with her usual smile. "I just wanted to know, you are Rosa, the saleswoman who has worked here for a long time?" Rosa blinked in surprise. "Yes, it's me, but how do you know my name?" The young man gave a wistful smile. He observed the fruit baskets, the old cart she still used, the wrinkled hands that bore so much work. 10 years ago, a child came here. He was hungry. You gave him a mango, without asking for anything in return. Rosa felt a shiver run up the back of her neck. "A child?" she murmured. "Yes," he replied softly, "that child was me." Rosa brought her hand to her mouth. She looked at him closely, and suddenly, she saw again that little boy with dirty cheeks, his eyes shining with hunger and gratitude. "Oh, Lord, was that you?" He nodded, a smile full of emotion. "My name is now Elias Johnson. I grew up, I studied, I worked hard. And if I've come back today, it's to tell you that your gesture has changed my life." Rosa, overcome with emotion, felt her eyes fill with tears. "My boy. I never thought I'd see you again. Elias turned to his driver and gestured. The driver opened the trunk of the car and took out several crates full of exotic fruits, more beautiful than anything Rosa had ever sold. "I've bought a large warehouse, Ms. Rosa. And I'd like you to become the manager of our market stalls. You have a heart of gold, and I want your kindness to be rewarded." Rosa was speechless. Her hands were trembling. "Me? In charge? But I'm just a simple saleswoman." Elias approached and placed a kind hand on her shoulder. "No, Madame Rosa. You are the one who taught me what generosity means. Without you, I might not be here today. Now, it is my turn to reach out to you." The entire market had stopped. People watched, moved by the scene. Rosa, the humble saleswoman everyone knew, had just seen her life turned upside down. Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks. "Thank you, my son, you can't imagine how much this gesture touches me." Elias smiled. "You started this story, Madame Rosa. I am only continuing it." The market had calmed down. Around Rosa's stall, the murmur of passers-by turned into an emotional silence. Everyone wanted to understand who this elegant young man was, who had arrived in a luxury car to meet a simple fruit vendor. Rosa, still in shock, invited Elias to sit on the old wooden stool behind her stall. He accepted respectfully, undeterred by the dust or the simplicity of the place. Memories floated between them, invisible yet powerful. "Tell me, my son, what happened to you after that day?" she asked, her voice trembling. Elias smiled gently, his gaze lost in the past. "That day, Madame Rosa, you gave me much more than a mango. You gave me back hope." He paused, took a deep breath. "I had been alone on the street for 3 days. My mother had just died, and I didn't know where to go. When you handed me that fruit, I felt, for the first time in a long time, that someone cared about me. So I made a promise: I will never let misery decide my future." Rosa listened, distraught, clenching her hands to hold back her tears. "I found refuge in a children's shelter. I started studying. The beginnings were difficult, but I persevered. I worked evenings, washed cars, sold newspapers, then, thanks to a scholarship, I was able to enter university." He looked at Rosa with a grateful smile. "Today, I run a tropical fruit import-export company. We work with several countries in Africa and Latin America. And I have never forgotten the taste of that mango, that taste of goodness and hope." Rosa's eyes were shining. "My God," she murmured, "all this, for a simple piece of fruit given to a hungry child?" Elias shook his head. "No, Madame Rosa. Not just a piece of fruit. It was an act of love. And love, when sown, always ends up growing, even in concrete." He signaled to his driver, who brought a carefully sealed envelope. Elias placed it on the worn wooden table. "This is for you. This is your new contract. I want you to be my official partner for the local market. You won't have to get up before dawn to buy your fruit anymore. You'll manage our products here, in your own name." Rosa froze. She had never signed anything so important. Her hands were trembling. "Elias. I don't know what to say. I just did what my heart told me to." "And that's precisely why you deserve all of this," that he replied, "because in a world where many close their eyes, you have chosen to open your hand." A light breeze rustled the leaves in the market. The sun was slowly setting, bathing the scene in a golden light. The other merchants approached, some discreetly wiping away a tear, others applauding timidly. Rosa squeezed Elias's hands, her gaze filled with tenderness. "You know, my son, I'm not rich, but I've always believed that helping is like planting a tree. You don't know when it will bear fruit, but one day it will offer shade to someone." Elias smiled, moved. "And this tree, Madame Rosa, that's you." The entire market erupted in applause. Children laughed, customers stopped, moved by this rare scene. Rosa felt a new warmth fill her heart. For the first time in a long time, she understood that life had never forgotten her kindness. It had simply waited for the right moment to give back all that she had sown. The next morning, Rosa arrived at the market earlier than usual. The sun had not yet broken through the mist, and yet, there was an unusual bustle. Trucks were parked at the entrance, workers were putting up new tarpaulins, and crates of exotic fruits were being stacked under brand new parasols. Rosa stopped, confused. "But, what is all this?" she asked a neighboring merchant. "This is your stall, Rosa," he replied with a big smile. "The young man from yesterday, Elias, came back this morning. He had everything renovated for you." With a beating heart, Rosa stepped forward. Where her old, worn-out cart had stood, there now stood a brand-new stall, decorated with bright colors and a sign in gold lettering. Rosa's Fruits, in partnership with Johnson Export. She was speechless. The fruit crates were perfectly arranged, the scales were new, the baskets were hand-woven. Everything exuded dignity, respect, and appreciation. "Hello, Ms. Rosa," said a voice behind her. She turned around. Elias was standing there, in a light shirt, a genuine smile on his face. "I promised you a surprise." Rosa felt her eyes fill with tears. "My son, you shouldn't have done all this for me." "And," replied Elias softly, "because you deserve to be seen for the extraordinary woman you are. This market wouldn't be the same without you." The other vendors had gathered, curious. Elias climbed onto a small crate and began to speak. "My friends, I am here today to thank this woman. 10 years ago, when I was a starving child, she reached out to me without expecting anything in return. Thanks to her, I learned that true wealth is not money, but the heart." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some wiped their eyes, others nodded their heads in emotion. "So, I decided to create a program in his name. This is Elijah, the Rosa Fund, a project aimed at helping small market vendors improve their stalls, get better equipment, and send their children to school." People looked at each other, stunned. Rosa, trembling, put her hand on her chest. "Elias, you are changing the lives of the entire market." "No, Ms. Rosa. It is why you started it. I am just continuing the circle of kindness that you created." Applause erupted. Laughter, shouts of joy, faces lit up. Women danced spontaneously, children distributed pieces of mango. The market, once gray and noisy, vibrated with a new energy, that of gratitude and solidarity. Rosa, moved to tears, took Elias's hand and squeezed it tightly. "You did more than thank me, my son. You restored dignity to people who were being forgotten." Elias smiled. "You taught me that kindness never dies. It grows, gently, and always ends up returning to where it was born." On that day, the entire market became a symbol of hope. And Rosa, the simple fruit seller, became a neighborhood legend, the woman whose single gesture had fed a child, and changed the fate of hundreds of others. The sun was setting over the transformed market. The lights hanging between the stalls shone like fireflies. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the sweet scent of ripe fruit. Rosa, sitting behind her new counter, watched it all with a heart full of gratitude. In the days that followed, the name Les Fruits de Rosa became known throughout the neighborhood. People came not only to buy, but also to hear her story, the story of a simple woman who, through an act of love, had changed the course of a life. That evening, as she was preparing to close her stall, Elias returned. He was not alone. Beside him, an elegant woman was holding the hand of a little boy of about 6 years old. "Good evening, Mrs. Rosa," he said softly. Rosa smiled, moved. "Good evening, son. Still working late, I see." "Not this time," he replied, laughing. "I wanted to introduce you to my family." He turned towards them. "This is my wife, Angela, and my son, Samuel." The little boy stepped forward timidly, hidden behind his mother's skirt. Elias placed a hand on his shoulder. "Samuel, this is where Dad received his first mango. The one that gave him the strength to continue." The boy looked up at Rosa and, without hesitation, handed her a ripe mango he was holding in his hands. "This is for you, Mrs. Rosa." Dad told me you like to give. So I want to give you something too. Rosa felt her heart clench. She gently took the fruit, her eyes misting over. Thank you, my angel, you have just given me much more than a mango. Elias looked at her tenderly. I wanted to give you one last gift, he said, not in money, but as a souvenir. He signaled to a worker who was approaching with a young tree sapling in a pot. It's a mango tree, explained Elias, that I would like it planted here, next to your stall. I want it to grow in the same place where, 10 years ago, you reached out to a starving child. The passers-by stopped, silent. Rosa, with tears in her eyes, touched the soil in the pot. A tree of life, she murmured, this is the most beautiful gift anyone could give me. Together, Elias, his wife, Samuel, and Rosa dug the ground and planted the small tree. The entire market erupted in applause. Some took photos, others recited prayers. Rosa looked up at the sky, a peaceful smile on her lips. You see, my God, nothing that is given with the heart is ever lost. Everything eventually blooms again. The small mango tree, swaying in the evening breeze, seemed to promise a bright future. And as the stars appeared one by one, Elias squeezed Rosa's hand and said, This tree will bear your name, Madame Rosa. It will remind everyone that kindness is the greatest of riches. END. 10 years earlier, a woman had offered a piece of fruit. 10 years later, that fruit had grown into a tree. And this tree, from now on, would nourish entire generations with love and hope.